So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure to be invited here, and I think it's a really interesting experience to share how different universities have coped with this difficult experience and how we can approach and learn all from each other. And I'm sure we're going to have very interesting conclusion from all of this. The University of Seville is inside Spain. We're well, not comparatively maybe that big of a university, but we have around 60,000 students. In the whole Spain, we had the state of alarm on the 14th of March, which started lockdown, which had to make online classes happen. And the university had never done any sort of online activity, so this was new for all of us. As Celia has also said, we were not prepared, teachers were not prepared either. And on the 1st of April, we were told that university would stay online for the rest of the semester, which started on February. We changed to online half of March, and then we would finish in there in June. We're used to face-to-face classes, and that had to change. We have a platform, which is Backward Learn, which is, I guess, each university has a different platform. But in there, students with professors who are used to putting lecture notes, information, be able to communicate with students. But we had a problem which was beyond the scope of this pandemic, which was that not all professors were used to this platform. We're not used to handling with technology, equipment. So that was going to be even harder now, because now we're going to start using a platform which was Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which in my opinion was quite good because it allowed for synchronous lectures, and it allowed people to raise their hand and the teacher would say it, so they could ask a question. It could be interesting to prompt discussions where different people would talk, try to achieve more in the subject rather than only the professor speaking during the whole time. But there was one main problem, and it's not all people were used to it, not all people had access, and not all teachers knew how to use it well. I would like, if not, to see your opinions in the chat. What was the main problem you saw with online teaching during this time? So what was the main problem you saw in your universities? You can speak, I will say for the chat. So the main thing we encountered was students did not have the availability to go to these online lectures because they did not have a computer, they did not have Wi-Fi, or they were in a remote place where data connection was not well. Also with professors, so many professors would not be able to teach because they did not have that Wi-Fi connection. They could not impart those lectures. This was something that affected both students and professors. So we started from the different faculties, students' representatives tried to get the information of those students who did not have a computer, who did not have Wi-Fi, in order to them to be sent computers or data packages they could use. The problem is, as with all in university administration, it was quite slow. With the computers, it was a bit easier because our libraries had closed, but we usually have computers which are accessible to students in those libraries, which were sent to the students' homes. The data packages was something a bit harder, so they had to be bought for the university, and first they were not enough for every student. And in the end, some of them were not given until the starting of May, so many people had to stay 1 month, a month and a half, without being able to follow online lectures, which was a really big problem. But then, thankfully, everyone could get both a computer or data packages, so that would no longer be a problem. So this was really slow, both to students and to teachers, and sometimes teaching, not necessarily due to the teacher's fault, students having to learn by themselves and not being able to follow classes because the teacher could not be able to publish anything. Also because as primary schools and secondary schools also have closed, they could not balance work with family, and they sometimes did not have time to do these online lectures. Also because we did not have any substitutions. The problem is money was low for universities and we did not have much help in that sense. And many professors came ill, many students came ill with COVID, so they could not follow lectures, they could not impart them, and that was a really big problem we have. Many, during the first weeks, it was not a big percentage of the number of classes that actually were taught and not simply documents. Also, well, this has also been addressed before. It's not the same what you can learn in a controlled environment, in your library, in the university, in the campus, than in your home, where you may be sharing your bedroom with 2 brothers, and you cannot concentrate, you cannot have the same schedules. Also, many international students had to adapt to these new schedules, and maybe they had gone back home and it's not reasonable for them to attend a lecture at 4 in the morning, for example. So we did a survey at the beginning of the lockdown. The first one tries to show teaching had adapted really well. As you can see, the results were not really good. And the second one was the workload associated during this time. Also, during these 2, 3, or 4 weeks at the beginning, many classes were stopped because they either the professors did not have the ability, because the courses to make them learn this new stuff, how to work with Black collaborators, Zoom or ZOOMe or other streaming services, came at the end of March or the beginning of April, which meant that many were not able to give these classes. And in the end, some of them tried to rush over the whole course, and that's something that was not good, because you cannot pretend to do the same in less time, specifically given the circumstances. So that ended in a big workload, which harmed many students. But it was not all bad. Some of the things that in the end came better was, first of all, availability. Lectures were being recorded. That made them available so that students could watch them anytime. Each student could adapt to their own rhythm. They could watch them, maybe if they did not understand something, they could email the professor, but they could also see again, try to learn in that time, watch it slow, pause it. And that was something that was really useful. And also the use of interactive videos, other explanations, which would not make it as well in the class. Also, it was a huge problem that libraries were not available, but the libraries worked really hard so that papers, books that were useful for students were available online. So that made more information freely available, which is always a good thing. And despite not having the same level of interaction, in the end, practically all classes had transformed and could be done online. And many teachers understood that maybe it's not the best idea to simply just get what you used to do in your classroom and pass it online the same way and adapt it to doing more discussions, maybe smaller sessions, because you will not be as concentrated 2 hours from a computer. Also, another of the positive things is more COVID-related stuff was taught. So, for example, I study mathematics, and some of the teachers actually investigated on trying to predict different models for COVID-19. So they actually showed us their work, and that was something really interesting in other subjects as well. And all of what I've talked is more for theoretical subjects, and there's a problem with field trips, lab practices, curricular internships that may be harder because the majority of them were suspended. So all investigation works which needed to be able for you to go to the labs either have been postponed and they were done in June and July where the situation was better, or they have allowed the students to finish those courseworks online, or to be able to do them until December, because sometimes it's a really interesting experience and you do not want to miss that internship and just do it online. Because, for example, if you're focusing on trying to be afterwards a primary or secondary school teacher, the experience you get from being in the class and actually learning with the students is not going to be the same as if you do some sort of online work in that sense. And one of the most interesting things that we had is for students from medicine and pharmacy, as well as nursing, which we got to an agreement with the sanitary services from our community so that they could sort of volunteer and help with the pandemic situation, because it was really needed, being all the time with a professional, and they will earn money because they were working in that sense, and that would serve as their curricular internship, and it's a great way to learn. There's not going to be a better way to experience how to deal with something like this. It's going to be an incredible experience. Maybe not a necessarily a good one because you're going to experience what's happening, but definitely it's going to change their vision, and it's much better than maybe other internships they could have had. Also, in the cases of students which, due to connectivity issues, could not follow completely, or also suffered from COVID, had families passed away and could not, due to obvious reasons, concentrate as much in their studies, they were given back the money, so they would not have to worry about the grade and try again next year when their situation is better and now focus on their health and their loved ones' health, which is the most important thing. Now we're starting a new course at the end of this September. Our situation has come better from what we were in March, but it's not been really good. And definitely in Spain, if you have heard the news, we are not having the best data these days. But we are planning for 2 scenarios because we know that face-to-face learning is something that cannot be changed. And professors seeing the reaction of students is something that, despite you can try your best with online learning, you cannot be exactly the same, and it has many advantages, but that's something you cannot get that way. And so what's the thing? We obviously have to follow safety measures. So every student cannot be at the class at the same time, or the faculty, because that would be too many people together and it would be a risk. So there's going to be safety distances between students, but then all of them cannot go at the same time. So there are cameras that are going to be installed in the different halls, so that by turns, some students will go to the class and be there with the professor, with the others will be able to watch from home. Also, this time, computers and data packages have been prepared from the beginning, so we do not have that lateness and those problems we had last time. And also, professors have been taught these courses about online technology, about Blackboard Collaborate, Zoom, and other techniques from June to September, so we can start better in that sense. And finally, the students will be told before the beginning of the classes how they are going to be, how they're going to be taught, because professors have had to explain how are they going to, in both this scenario of some people being there and some people being online, and in case the situation worsens and we have to go online 100%, how are the classes going to be, so that these problems do not happen and we try to have as good as an education we can have.